Hi, this is Tucker with your SAT vocabulary list number 5. Please take Cornell notes, write down the word, the part of speech, and the definition, as well as any examples that I say or that you think of that will help you to remember these words. And if at any point I'm going too fast, please pause the recording to catch up. The first word is abject, and this describes someone who's kind of low condition, in a low condition, maybe depressed or sad, but they've sunk to a low condition, below where they normally are. And so this person sitting on a park bench or a bench by a store or whatever just looks kind of sad or abject, low. Definitely doesn't look like he's happy or in a good space. The second word is anarchy, and anarchy is a noun. It's the absence of or the utter disregard for government. So if you think about government, it puts these rules and laws into place so that people act in a way that allows us to all get along. We act the way we know we need to. But if there is no government or people act like there's no government, then sometimes things can get really chaotic. And so when you think of anarchy, a lot of people think of chaos, just things being totally out of control. Because if there's no government or people are acting like there's no government, then they might behave in whatever way they want to, and that might not be very good. So this fire and this chaotic scene might be a good reminder of what anarchy is. Number 3 is callow, and this describes anyone without world experience or life experience, someone who's really young and just hasn't had very long in the world to learn about life. Oftentimes someone who's described as callow might be considered kind of naive because they don't have that world experience. So little kids, even though they might feel like superheroes and know everything, are fairly callow because they haven't been alive for very long. They haven't been around to kind of get world experience. 4 is destitute, and it describes any situation or person or people who are extremely poverty stricken. So they don't even have the basic necessities needed to really live a fulfilling life. Either they don't have enough food or they don't have a roof over their head. If you think about the people who are kind of dislocated because of war, oftentimes they're destitute. They don't have a place to call their own. They don't have a job to make money for an income. They're completely without resources. And this scene totally appears to be destitute. There's very little in this room to sustain life. 5 is expedite, and to expedite something is to hasten, to speed it up. So this is a verb. So when you want to speed something up, have it go faster, and increase the progress of something, you try to expedite it. And so oftentimes when we're sending things in the mail, for someone's birthday maybe you get to the post office kind of last minute and you want to expedite the delivery of your package, so you might actually pay more money to have it go airmail or first class. 6 is inconsequential, and something that is described as inconsequential is valueless or without value. And if you look at the word, or the beginning of the word in, that root means not. So inconsequential means not consequential or of no consequence. So thus it is, if it's of no consequence, then it is valueless. So having, a couple pennies or a few pennies and some dimes in your pocket or in your billfold might feel inconsequential because you can't really buy anything with such a small amount of money. So it might be of no consequence to you. 7 is irrelevant, and the beginning of this word, IR, also has a root that means not. So irrelevant means not relevant. It describes something that has no applicability to your life. It's not going to impact you or your decision making or your situation. So when I think about things that are irrelevant happening around me that don't really impact my life, sometimes I think of like gossip magazines or like TMZ. I find it almost comical that they could label this moment with Lindsay Lohan as like breaking news, because for me, it's not going to have any relevance to my life. It's completely irrelevant. 8 is morose, and morose describes anything that is gloomy. And it can be kind of physically gloomy, or it can be kind of like a gloomy personality. And when I think of morose, I think of Eeyore from Winnie the Pooh, because he's always kind of down. The glass is always half empty. He's always kind of gloomy. But it can also describe a scene that's really kind of gloomy and dark, maybe because like this one with the big clouds, kind of making it feel dark and gloomy. 9 is perceive, and to perceive is to have knowledge or to gain kind of information about what's around you using your bodily senses, your sense of sight, your sense of smell, your ability to hear and taste and feel. All of these bodily senses allow you to perceive the world around you, to gain information, to receive impressions from the setting, from what's immediately around you. And so just thinking about how much information you just take in with your ability to see and what we perceive with our vision is pretty staggering. 10 is recuperate. And if you're recuperating, this is a verb, you're recovering. So to recuperate is to recover, to get better, to return to some former state of health. So when you get a cold or the flu, it might take a couple days or a few weeks to recuperate, to fully recover from that illness. If you break your leg, you're going to have to put your foot up, you're going to have to relax, you might have to take time off of work or school or whatever sports you play to recuperate and recover. 11 is satire, and satire is a noun, and a satire is oftentimes can be kind of a work of art, whether it's a piece of writing that employs sarcasm, irony, or keenness, which is like sharpness of wit, in ridiculing vices. And vices are the things that we do that we probably shouldn't be doing. And so if we use irony, if we use sarcasm, if we use wit to make fun of those things, then we can create a satire. And one of my favorite examples of satire is this video clip of Jimmy Fallon and Justin Timberlake making fun of the use of hashtags. But hashtags are used in Twitter, social media, kind of an organizational tool. And yet a lot of people now say hashtag and then follow it with whatever the phrase is that they would write a hashtag if they were, saying something on Twitter or on Instagram. Instead, now people actually, put your fingers together, say hashtag, and it's kind of ridiculous. And so they made this little video clip where they're having this whole conversation that's loaded with all these hashtags where they're actually physically making the hashtag and then saying them to kind of create this satire of what people look like when they're doing this, then they're communicating in this way, which is kind of ridiculous. 12 is subsequent, and this describes something that happens that's following in time, so it happens after. So if it happens subsequent to something else, it happens after whatever the thing is that preceded it, that came before it. And so a lot of times you'll actually hear the word subsequently, which is describing when something happened, so that, subsequently he tripped and fell. So that happened after something else. Thinking about a calendar, just the progression of events, some things are subsequent to other things. 13 is transgress, and it's a verb, and it means to break a law. Although, the noun form is transgression, and any transgression is really any time you break a rule or an expected way to behave, or in the very severe end, a law. So to transgress is to break a law. So depending on how bad your transgression, you might end up in jail if you transgress a really severe, law that's, if it's a really bad thing that you did. 14 is vindicate. It's a verb, and it means to prove true, right, or real. And so if someone accuses you of doing something and you're able to prove that you did not actually do it, you would feel vindicated because you were able to prove that you were right all along, that what you said was true. And when I was thinking about this word, I was thinking about Nelson Mandela, because Nelson Mandela was a member of the African National Congress and led peaceful protests and armed resistance against the white minority that was in South Africa, a very oppressive white minority. And he actually went to jail for almost 30 years. And in 1990, he was released, and then he became the first Black president in South Africa. So on some level, he must have felt vindicated that he went to prison for all this time, but then when he came out, he had such respect from the people who were around him who obviously felt that what he had done was really valuable and good, that they would elect him the first Black president of South Africa. 15 is wield, and to wield, it's a verb, and it means to use, control, or manage something like a weapon or an instrument with full command. So I'm thinking of the movie The Gladiator, and when the gladiators are in the ring and they're using all these crazy kind of old weapons to fight one another, many of them wield these weapons with total control. They were clearly like masters at using these really kind of archaic weapons that you don't see anymore, obviously. Some of them wield swords. They wielded swords and are clearly in control of their swords, have a lot of practice. But you can also wield things that you can't see. So, for example, a monarch or a king might wield power, right? Control his or her power and use it the way he or she wants for whatever ends they're hoping to get at.